The Galactic Council's war chamber fell silent as Admiral of the Empire finished his presentation. Holographic displays showed the tactical superiority of their combined fleets, battle formations that had conquered 17 star systems, and weapon technologies that could crack planets like eggs. The assembled delegates from 12 different species nodded in approval, their various forms of agreement creating a symphony of clicks, hums, and telepathic pulses. "The human problem will be resolved within one solar rotation," declared, his four arms gesturing confidently at the battle plans. "Their single star system cannot withstand the might of our united armadas." Commander of the crystalline hegemony pulsed a cold blue light. "The humans have been warned repeatedly to cease their expansion. They ignored our territorial boundaries, established colonies in disputed regions, and worst of all, they refused to acknowledge our authority. This aggression cannot stand." The truth was more complex than the Council admitted. Humanity had indeed expanded rapidly since achieving faster-than-light travel just 50 years ago. But their expansion wasn't driven by conquest or greed. They were fleeing. Earth was dying, poisoned by centuries of industrial abuse, and humanity was desperately seeking new homes among the stars. The Galactic Council, however, saw only rapid expansion and resource competition. High Arbiter Thanesu, an ancient being whose species had mediated galactic conflicts raised a crystalline appendage. "What do we know of human military capabilities? Surely we should understand our enemy before engaging in warfare." General of the Hive Collective buzzed dismissively. "Intelligence reports indicate primitive kinetic weapons, basic energy shields, and chemical propulsion systems. They barely qualify as a spacefaring civilization. Their largest warship masses less than one of our fighter craft." What the Galactic Council didn't understand was that they were viewing humanity through the lens of their own military doctrine. Every advanced civilization in the galaxy had developed along similar paths: energy weapons, defensive shields, massive capital ships that engaged in formal battle formations. Warfare had become ritualized, almost ceremonial, with specific rules and expected outcomes. For instance, believed in overwhelming force delivered through direct assault. Their dreadnoughts were mobile fortresses designed to absorb enemy fire while delivering devastating energy blasts. The crystalline hegemony favored precision strikes, their needle-like ships dancing through space to deliver surgical attacks. The Hive Collective relied on swarm tactics, using thousands of small craft to overwhelm enemy defenses. All of these approaches had been tested against each other each species understood the other's capabilities and limitations. War had become predictable, almost mathematical. You calculated fleet strengths, compared technological advantages, and determined the victor before the first shot was fired. Casualties were minimized because everyone understood the rules. Humans, however, had never learned these rules. Dr. Sarah sat in the cramped command center of humanity's First Fleet, reviewing the intelligence reports that made her stomach turn. The combined alien armada approaching Earth's solar system represented enough firepower to sterilize 100 worlds. Humanity's entire fleet consisted of 43 ships, most of them converted civilian vessels hastily fitted with whatever weapons and armor they could manufacture. "Admiral, we're outnumbered 300 to 1, she reported to the grizzled veteran who commanded humanity's defense. "Their smallest cruiser outguns our flagship. Conventional analysis suggests we should surrender and hope for mercy." Admiral Jack had fought in every human conflict of the past 30 years, from the water wars of Africa to the corporate rebellions of Mars. He'd seen what happened when superior firepower met human determination, and the results were rarely what anyone expected. "Doctor, show me again how they fight." The holographic display activated, showing recorded battles between various alien species. Sarah watched weathered face as formations of massive ships maneuvered with ponderous grace, exchanging energy blasts at long range. Battles lasted hours, sometimes days, as fleets slowly wore each other down according to established tactical doctrine. "They fight like," muttered, "honor guards, parade formations, rules of engagement." He turned to his tactical officer. "Lieutenant, what's the speed of their fastest combat vessel?" "0.7 light speed, sir, but their average cruising speed in formation is 0.4. Smiled grimly. "And what's the top speed of our converted racing yacht?" "The Shooting Star? She can hit 0.95 light speed, sir, but she's only armed with mining lasers and a single torpedo tube." "Perfect. activated the fleet communication system. All ships, this is Admiral, I know what you're thinking. I know the odds. I know every military simulation says we're about to be obliterated. But here's what those simulations don't account for. They're not fighting humans. They're fighting creatures who learned warfare from games, who developed tactics based on survival, not honor. They think they understand war because they've been playing by the same rules for thousands of years. We're about to teach them that humans don't play by rules. Captain commanded the mining vessel Prometheus, hastily converted into humanity's heaviest gunship. Her crew consisted of asteroid miners, cargo haulers, and a few military advisors who kept shaking their heads at the modifications they'd made. Instead of energy weapons, they'd mounted mass drivers originally designed for asteroid processing. Instead of particle shields, they'd layered their hull with ablative armor made from compressed space debris. "Captain, we're receiving formation orders from the flagship," reported her communications officer. Laughed, "Formation orders? Tell the Admiral we acknowledge his suggestions and will proceed according to local conditions." She turned to her crew. "Ladies, and we're not forming up in some pretty parade pattern. We're going to do what miners do best: hit hard, hit dirty, and hit where they don't expect it." The mining crews understood the plan instinctively. They'd spent years tracking asteroids through chaotic orbital patterns, calculating intercept courses for tumbling rocks, and operating in environments where a single mistake meant death. Military formation flying was for people who had the luxury of predictable enemies and open space. Miners worked in asteroid belts, debris fields, and the chaotic gravity wells around gas giants. As the alien armada approached the outer system, human ships began moving into positions that made no tactical sense by conventional standards. Instead of forming defensive lines or battle formations, they scattered throughout the solar system like seeds on the wind. Some headed for the asteroid belt, others dove toward the gas giants, and a few actually fled toward the edge of the system at maximum acceleration. Commander observed the human deployment with confusion. "They're running away. Some are hiding in the asteroid field, others are positioning themselves uselessly throughout the system. This is not warfare, this is cowardice." Admiral agreed. "Perhaps they hope to surrender ship by ship, minimizing casualties. Very well, we shall accommodate them. Order Battle Group Alpha to secure the asteroid belt. Battle Group Beta will pursue the fleeing vessels. The main force will advance directly on Earth and force planetary surrender." What the aliens didn't realize was that they'd just divided their overwhelming force into 3 smaller groups, each operating independently across a solar system that humans knew intimately. Every asteroid, every gravitational anomaly, every debris field had been mapped, and during 50 years of desperate expansion. The aliens were entering humanity's home territory, and humans had spent those 5 decades learning every possible advantage their environment could provide. The first indication that something was wrong came when Battle Group Alpha entered the asteroid belt. The human ships they'd come to capture weren't hiding among the asteroids. They were using them as weapons. The converted mining vessel Prometheus had positioned itself behind a massive iron-nickel asteroid and was using its industrial-grade engines to alter the rock's trajectory. Instead of fleeing from the approaching alien cruiser, they were steering a mountain directly into its path. Captain's crew worked with practiced efficiency, their mining experience perfectly suited to this insane tactic. "Burn in 3 seconds," she announced. "Remember, we only get 1 shot at this." The cruiser Thunderbolt detected the anomalous asteroid movement too late. Their energy weapons could vaporize smaller rocks, but the massive asteroid had chosen was 3 kilometers of solid metal. Their desperate attempt to change course only ensured that the collision occurred at an angle that cracked their hull open like an egg. But that was just the beginning. As Battle Group Alpha tried to regroup, they discovered that the entire asteroid belt had become a weapon. Human crews were using gravity tugs to alter orbital mechanics, creating collision courses that would develop over hours or days. Mining charges were being detonated to create debris clouds that would shred any ship moving at combat speed. Converted haulers were playing gravity pinball, using the chaotic gravitational environment to slingshot themselves into attack runs at impossible velocities. The aliens found themselves fighting not just human ships, but the entire solar system. Every piece of space debris became a potential projectile. Every asteroid shadow concealed another surprise. The humans weren't following any recognizable battle plan because they weren't fighting a battle. They were conducting the largest mining operation in history, except instead of extracting valuable materials, They were extracting alien warships from functional status. Admiral monitored the battle from his flagship, watching as his scattered fleet turned their home system into a death trap. "Doctor, are you recording all of this?" "Every second, sir, though I'm not sure any military academy will believe the tactical recordings." "They will when this is over," said grimly, "because we're about to teach the galaxy a lesson they'll never forget. War isn't about formations and honor and following rules. War is about using every advantage, exploiting every weakness, and fighting with everything you have. These aliens think they understand conflict because they've been playing the same game for. We're about to show them what happens when someone changes the rules." The battle of the asteroid belt was just beginning, but already the carefully planned alien invasion was degenerating into chaos. The Galactic Council had expected a quick, clean victory against primitive humans. Instead, they were discovering that primitives who had learned warfare through desperation were far more dangerous than advanced civilizations who had made conflict into a ritual. In the depths of space, humanity was about to demonstrate why their species had survived every natural disaster, climate change, and resource war that Earth could throw at them. They hadn't conquered their home planet through superior technology or overwhelming force. They'd survived by being too stubborn to quit, too creative to follow conventional wisdom, and too desperate to fight fair. The aliens wanted a war. Humanity was about to give them one unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Battle Group Beta had what seemed like the easiest assignment: pursue and destroy the human vessels that were fleeing toward the edge of the solar system. Commander Al of the Serpentine Dominion led a formation of fast attack cruisers specifically designed for hunting down retreating enemies. Their ships were sleek, fast, and armed with long-range energy weapons perfect for picking off fleeing targets. "The humans are showing their true nature," Al hissed to his tactical officer. "When faced with superior force, they run like scared prey animals. We shall hunt them down one by one and demonstrate the price of defying the Galactic Council." What Al didn't understand was that the human ships weren't fleeing in panic. They were implementing a strategy that had never been attempted in the galaxy's recorded military history: the fighting retreat. Every human military academy taught the concept, but no alien civilization had developed the idea because their warfare was based on formal confrontation, not survival desperation. Captain Maria Santos commanded the converted cargo hauler Defiant Spirit, one of the fleeing human vessels. Her ship had been a long-range supply hauler before the war, designed to carry cargo to the outer colonies. Now her cargo hold was filled with something no alien commander would expect: mines, drones, and automated defense platforms that could be deployed while moving at high speed. "Captain, the alien pursuit group is gaining on us," reported her navigator, a former racing pilot named Jack Park. "They'll be in weapons range in 30 minutes. "Perfect timing," Maria replied. She activated the ship's intercom. "All hands prepare for Operation Breadcrumb. Remember, we're not running away from them. We're leading them exactly where we want them to go." The Defiant Spirit had been dropping surprises throughout its retreat. Every few thousand kilometers, automated platforms ejected from the cargo bay and activated after a preset delay. These weren't sophisticated weapons by alien standards, mostly mining charges with proximity sensors and simple guidance systems. But they created something that had never existed in galactic warfare: a minefield in space. Traditional space combat occurred in open void where massive ships could maneuver freely. The idea of filling space with hidden dangers was foreign to alien military doctrine. Their ships were designed for direct confrontation, not for navigating through fields of hidden explosives. The first Serpentine cruiser hit a proximity mine at 70% of light speed. The explosion wasn't powerful enough to destroy the ship, but the impact sent it tumbling out of formation. As the damage control teams struggled to restore stability, 3 more mines detonated in sequence, each one carefully positioned to push the crippled ship into the path of the next explosion. "Clever prey," Al admitted as he watched his lead cruiser disappear in an expanding cloud of debris. "They are using primitive weapons in unexpected ways. All ships reduce speed and activate defensive scanners." But slowing down was exactly what the humans wanted. Captain Santos smiled as she watched the alien formation lose momentum. "They're learning to be cautious. Time to teach them that caution has its own price. Jack, activate the pursuit drones." From the cargo holds of fleeing human ships, swarms of small automated drones deployed and began accelerating back toward the alien formation. These drones were built from salvaged fighter craft, racing vessels, and anything else that could mount a single weapon and a guidance system. Each drone was essentially a guided missile with enough intelligence to make targeting decisions. The aliens found themselves in an impossible situation. If they maintained high speed, they hit mines. If they slowed down, they were swarmed by attack drones. Their sophisticated point-defense systems were designed to intercept energy weapons and large projectiles, not clouds of small, fast-moving targets that attacked from every direction. Commander Al realized he was being drawn into a trap, but escape was no longer possible. The human ships had led his formation into a carefully prepared killing field. Every piece of space debris, every abandoned cargo container, every navigation buoy had been weaponized. The humans weren't fighting a retreat. They were conducting a systematic ambush that stretched across millions of kilometers. Meanwhile, Battle Group Gamma faced the most humiliating defeat in galactic military history. Their mission was simple: advance directly on Earth and force planetary surrender through overwhelming firepower. General of the Iron Legion commanded the largest ships in the combined fleet, massive dreadnoughts designed to intimidate planetary populations into submission. The formation approached Earth in perfect order, their massive hulls gleaming with the authority of galactic civilization. This was how wars were supposed to end: decisive demonstration of superior force followed by reasonable surrender negotiations. General had conducted 17 such operations, and each had concluded with minimal casualties and diplomatic resolution. What General couldn't know was that Earth's defense wasn't based on military vessels at all. Dr. Sarah had spent the past weeks implementing the most desperate defensive strategy in human history, turning Earth's orbital infrastructure into a weapon. "General, are you certain about this approach?" Doctor asked as they monitored the approaching alien fleet. "We're talking about destroying centuries of space development." Admiral nodded grimly. "Better to lose our orbital cities than our planet. Besides, we built them once. We can build them again. But first, let's show these aliens what happens when you threaten Earth." For centuries, humans had been building in Earth's orbit. Space stations, manufacturing facilities, solar power collectors, and transportation hubs formed a complex network around the planet. To visiting aliens, this infrastructure looked like a typical space civilization: peaceful, productive, and completely defenseless. What they didn't realize was that human engineers had been preparing for this moment since the first alien contact. Every space station had been fitted with emergency rocket motors. Every manufacturing facility could be converted into a kinetic weapon. Every orbital platform could be turned into a missile with enough explosive power to crack a mountain. As Battle Group Gamma approached Earth, the planet's orbital infrastructure began to move. Space stations broke orbit and accelerated toward the alien formation. Manufacturing plants ejected their contents, not finished goods, but raw materials and industrial equipment that became high-velocity projectiles. Solar power collectors focused their energy into concentrated beams that could blind sensors or overload electronic systems. General watched in disbelief as Earth's entire orbital civilization committed suicide in order to attack his fleet. "This is impossible," he muttered. "No civilization destroys its own infrastructure for military advantage. The economic cost is incalculable." His tactical officer pulsed agreement. "Sir, they're using their space cities as ammunition. Each station masses several million tons and is accelerating at 20 gravities. At impact velocity, the kinetic energy release will equal a nuclear weapon." "Impossible," repeated. "No rational species would sacrifice centuries of development for a single battle. This must be some form of madness." But it wasn't madness, it was mathematics. Doctor had calculated that rebuilding Earth's orbital infrastructure would take perhaps 50 years. Losing Earth itself would mean the extinction of humanity. When faced with that equation, the choice was obvious. Every human understood the logic. You can always build more cities, but you only get one home planet. The first orbital station struck the Iron Legion dreadnought at 95% of light speed. The impact released more energy than most planetary bombardments, cracking the massive ship's hull and sending debris cascading through the alien formation. But that was just the beginning. Earth's orbital infrastructure had been designed as an integrated network. As each piece was destroyed, it triggered automated systems that launched the next wave of attacks. Manufacturing facilities became kinetic impactors. Communication satellites became guided missiles. Even the orbital garbage collection systems became weapons, launching compressed waste at velocities that turned toilet paper into armor-piercing ammunition. General found himself commanding a fleet under attack from an entire planetary civilization that had weaponized everything from luxury cruise ships to sewage treatment plants. The humans weren't just defending their world, they were throwing their world at him, one piece at a time. "Sir, we need to withdraw to a safe distance and reassess," his tactical officer reported. "The humans are using strategies that violate every principle of rational warfare. Our casualties are approaching 30%, and we haven't even engaged their military forces yet." But withdrawal was complicated by the debris field that Earth's orbital suicide had created. The space around Earth was now filled with wreckage, radiation, and chunks of destroyed infrastructure that made navigation hazardous. The aliens found themselves trapped in a maze of hazards that the humans continued to add to with each desperate attack. Back in the command center, Admiral watched the battle reports with satisfaction. "Doctor, what's our status on the backup plan?" Sarah checked her readings. "Luna Base reports ready for Operation Slingshot. The mass drivers are aligned and loaded. We can begin bombardment on your command." Smiled grimly. Earth's moon had been humanity's first major off-world colony, and like everything humans built, it had been designed with multiple purposes. The mass drivers that launched cargo to Earth could just as easily launch projectiles at enemy fleets. Luna wasn't just Earth's moon. It was humanity's largest artillery platform. "Begin bombardment," ordered. "Let's show them what it means to threaten the human home system." As Battle Group Gamma struggled to cope with Earth's orbital suicide attack, Luna began launching projectiles at significant fractions of light speed. Each projectile was nothing more than compressed metal and rock, but when launched from a gravitational catapult at sufficient velocity, simple matter became devastating weaponry. The aliens realized they were facing an enemy that fought with their entire civilization. Not just military units, but every aspect of human society had been converted into weapons. Their orbital cities, their moon, their asteroids, even their garbage had become ammunition in a war that followed no recognizable rules. General finally understood what they were facing. "Communications, send message to Admiral. The humans are not conducting warfare as we understand it. They are engaging in species-level combat using their entire star system as a weapon. We need immediate reinforcement or complete withdrawal." But Admiral was dealing with his own crisis. His carefully planned invasion had become a nightmare of impossible tactics, environmental weapons, and enemies who seemed willing to destroy themselves rather than surrender. The humans weren't just fighting a war, they were redefining what warfare meant. And across the galaxy, other species were beginning to receive reports that would change their understanding of conflict forever. Admiral's flagship, the massive dreadnought Eternal Dominion, had been designed to serve as the command center for conventional galactic warfare. Its communication systems could coordinate fleets across multiple star systems. Its tactical computers could process battle data from thousands of ships simultaneously, and its defensive systems could withstand the concentrated fire of entire armadas. None of this mattered when facing an enemy that didn't follow the established rules of engagement. "Admiral, we're receiving distress signals from all three battle groups," reported Communications Officer I, her bioluminescent patches flickering with stress patterns. "Battle Group Alpha reports that the asteroid belt has become tactically unstable. Battle Group Beta is requesting immediate extraction from what they're calling a pursuit trap. And Battle Group Gamma." "What about Battle Group Gamma?" demanded. "Sir, General is reporting that the humans have weaponized their own planet. Earth's orbital infrastructure is conducting suicide attacks against our formation." His forearms trembled with disbelief. In 3,000 years of galactic warfare, no species had ever deliberately destroyed their own cities to create weapons. The economic and cultural cost was beyond calculation. Civilizations built orbital habitats over centuries, not weeks. They represented the accumulated wisdom, art, and achievement of entire cultures. "Sir, we're also receiving reports from the Outer System Scouts," I continued. "The humans appear to have militarized everything. Cargo ships are deploying mines, research stations are firing improvised weapons, and even their tourism vessels are conducting attack runs. Through the bridge's main viewport, could see the impossible sight of human civilian craft engaging his escort ships. A luxury cruise liner, still decorated with advertising for vacation packages, was firing modified mining lasers while performing evasive maneuvers that no cruise ship should be capable of achieving. The cruise ship was the Starlight Dreams, normally used for week-long tour of Saturn's rings. Captain Foster had been conducting tourist flights just 2 months ago. Now her passenger lounges had been converted into ammunition storage, her restaurants had become damage control centers, and her guests were refugee families from the outer colonies who had volunteered for the most desperate mission in human history. "Engineering, what's our status on the emergency modifications?" asked over the intercom. "Captain, the fusion engines are running at 130% rated capacity," replied Chief Engineer Tommy Park, Jack's younger brother. "The mining laser array is operational, and we've got 17 torpedoes loaded in the improvised tubes. But I have to warn you, this ship wasn't designed for combat maneuvering. If we push her much harder, the hull might not hold together." "Then we'll hold her together with determination and spite," replied. "Weapons officer, target the alien cruiser's engine section. Let's show them what happens when you threaten human families." The Starlight Dreams engaged the cruiser Thunderstrike in a battle that would have been impossible under conventional military doctrine. The cruise ship was barely armed, inadequately shielded, and structurally unsuited for combat. But it had advantages that no military designer had ever considered: desperate civilians with nothing left to lose. The refugee families aboard the ship weren't just passengers, they were participants in the battle. Former engineers worked frantically to maintain systems beyond their design limits. Ex-military personnel operated improvised weapon systems. Even children helped by carrying ammunition and monitoring sensor displays. When the Thunderstrike's return fire damaged the cruise ship's primary engines, the passengers themselves went into the damaged sections to make repairs. When life support failed in 3 decks, families shared breathing apparatus and continued fighting from auxiliary control centers. When the ship's hull was breached in multiple locations, civilians used furniture and personal belongings to plug the holes. The crew watched in disbelief as the primitive ship continued fighting despite suffering damage that should have forced immediate surrender. Their cultural understanding of warfare included concepts of honor, acceptable losses, and rational decision-making. They had no framework for understanding an enemy that kept fighting long after reasonable beings would have quit. Captain finally managed to position her crippled ship for a ramming attack. "All hands, brace for impact. We're going to show these aliens what humans do when you threaten our children." The Starlight Dreams struck the Thunderstrike at maximum velocity, its reinforced tourist decks cutting through the alien ship's hull like a knife through paper. The impact destroyed both vessels, but the crew died knowing they had been defeated by a cruise ship full of human families who refused to surrender. Similar scenes were playing out across the solar system as humanity's entire civilization joined the fight. Research stations fired experimental weapons that violated every safety protocol ever written. Mining colonies used industrial equipment to create improvised artillery. Even the generation ships that had been preparing for interstellar colonization turned around and joined the battle, their massive hulls serving as mobile command centers for the scattered human fleet. Dr. Sarah monitored these reports from Earth's command center, trying to analyze a battle that every principle of military science she had ever learned. "Admiral, our casualties are approaching 60%. By any rational calculation, we should have been defeated hours ago." Admiral studied the tactical displays showing the chaotic battle across the solar system. "Doctor, rational calculations assume that both sides are playing by the same rules, but we're not playing by their rules. We're not even playing the same game." "Sir, I don't understand." "The aliens think this is a war," explained. "They're conducting military operations designed to achieve political objectives through controlled violence. But this isn't a war for us. This is an extinction event. When you're facing extinction, every rule goes out the window. Every convention becomes irrelevant. Every person becomes a soldier, every tool becomes a weapon, and every principle except survival becomes optional." The truth of words was demonstrated throughout the solar system as human forces continued fighting despite suffering losses that should have ended any conventional conflict. Ships kept fighting after their hulls were breached. Crews continued manning weapons stations despite fatal radiation exposure. Entire families volunteered for suicide missions if it meant taking alien ships with them. The aliens found themselves facing an enemy that couldn't be defeated through conventional means, because humans didn't surrender when they reached conventional defeat conditions. They surrendered when they were dead, and sometimes not even then. Commander of the Crystalline Hegemony found herself engaged in single combat with a human fighter pilot whose ship should have been destroyed an hour ago. The small craft was leaking atmosphere, trailing debris, and operating on backup power. By every military standard, it was a derelict that should have been abandoned. Instead, it kept attacking. "Human vessel, your ship is critically damaged," transmitted on standard military frequencies. "Surrender now and receive medical assistance." The response came back in heavily accented standard galactic. "This is Lieutenant Martinez, Earth Defense Force. My ship isn't dead until I'm dead, and I'm not dead until you're dead. Come and get me, alien." Had fought in 17 military campaigns across 12 different star systems. She had faced desperate enemies, fanatical defenders, and hopeless last stands. But she had never encountered an opponent who kept fighting a ship that was literally falling apart around them. Lieutenant Martinez's fighter was a converted racing craft that had been hastily armed with a single plasma cannon and minimal armor. It had been designed for speed and maneuverability, not sustained combat. But Martinez flew it like it was the most powerful warship in the galaxy, using every piece of space debris, every gravitational anomaly, and every dirty trick that human pilots had developed over 50 years of flying in hostile environments. "Warning, human fighter. Your life support systems are failing. You have perhaps 10 minutes before atmospheric depletion." "Then I guess I better kill you in the next 9 minutes," Martinez replied. Her fighter dove through an asteroid field at speeds that made sophisticated navigation systems scream warnings about collision probability. The crystalline commander found herself drawn into a pursuit through an environment that her ship's safety protocols declared unsurvivable. The human pilot was using the chaotic gravitational field of tumbling asteroids to perform maneuvers that should have been impossible, bouncing from one gravity well to another like a ball in a three-dimensional pinball machine. "This is madness," muttered as her ship's inertial compensators struggled to handle the acceleration forces. "No pilot should attempt these maneuvers." But Martinez wasn't thinking like a military pilot trained in safe, predictable flight patterns. She was thinking like a human who had learned to fly in Earth's cluttered orbital environment, where traffic control was more suggestion than law, and survival depended on being able to outmaneuver both enemy fighters and your own mistakes. The chase ended when Martinez deliberately flew her failing fighter into a collision course with a massive iron asteroid. At the last second, she ejected, leaving her ship to continue on autopilot. Following close behind, realized too late that the human had used her own fighter as a guided missile. The impact destroyed both the human fighter and the crystalline cruiser, but Martinez survived in her ejection pod long enough to watch her enemy die. She was picked up 3 hours later by a human rescue ship, and her first words upon revival were a request for another fighter so she could get back into the battle. Stories like this spread throughout the human fleet, creating a psychological effect that the aliens couldn't understand. Instead of being demoralized by heavy casualties, human forces seemed to become more determined with each loss. Every destroyed ship created survivors who were angrier and more desperate. Every fallen comrade created motivation for more extreme tactics. The aliens realized they were fighting an enemy that grew stronger through defeat, more dangerous through desperation, and more unified through loss. Their careful military calculations had assumed that sufficient pressure would force rational surrender. Instead, pressure was creating something they had never encountered before, a species-wide commitment to victory or extinction. High Arbiter Thanesu received the battle reports in his command ship, studying data that challenged his understanding of warfare itself. These humans fight as if they believe death in battle is preferable to surrender. This is not rational behavior for an intelligent species. His military advisor, General, buzzed agreement. "Indeed, Arbiter. Our psychological profiles suggest that most species reach surrender conditions when casualties exceed 40%. The humans have exceeded 70% casualties and continue fighting with increasing desperation." "Perhaps," Thanesu mused, We have misunderstood the nature of this conflict. We assumed this was a territorial dispute that could be resolved through military pressure. But the humans may view this as an existential threat requiring species-level response. Surely no rational species would commit total social resources to military conflict, protested. The economic disruption alone would require centuries to repair. Thanesu studied the tactical displays showing the impossible battle raging across the solar system. Human civilian ships were fighting military cruisers. Mining equipment was being used as artillery. Even their orbital cities were being sacrificed as weapons. This wasn't military doctrine. This was societal suicide in the name of resistance. General, I believe we have made a fundamental error in our approach to this species. We assumed they would fight like rational military forces seeking political objectives. Instead, they are fighting like a species that believes extinction is preferable to defeat. As if to prove his point, the sensor displays showed another human cargo ship conducting a suicide run against a Hive collective destroyer, taking the alien vessel with it in a massive explosion that lit up the darkness of space. The Galactic Council's carefully planned invasion was degenerating into a nightmare that challenged every assumption about civilized warfare. And across the galaxy, other species were beginning to ask a terrifying question. If humans fought this desperately to defend one star system, what would they do if they ever decided to attack? The turning point came not through superior tactics or advanced technology, but through something the Galactic Council had never considered: human adaptability under extreme pressure. As the battle entered its 16th hour, the aliens began to notice changes in human behavior that every predictable pattern of warfare. Commander Al of Battle Group Beta found himself facing an enemy that was evolving in real time. The human ships pursuing his formation had started the engagement using improvised weapons and desperate tactics. Now they were demonstrating coordination and innovation that seemed to improve with each engagement. "Sir, the human vessels are implementing new attack patterns," reported his tactical officer. "They're sharing tactical data and adapting their strategies faster than our combat computers can analyze." The truth was that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't any single piece of technology or tactical doctrine. It was their ability to learn, adapt, and communicate under pressure. While alien military forces operated according to established protocols developed over, human crews were inventing new approaches to combat in real time. Captain aboard the Prometheus discovered this when her mining crew developed a tactic that no military academy had ever taught. Instead of attacking alien ships directly, they began hurting them toward gravitational anomalies using precisely placed explosions and debris clouds. "Captain, we can't match their firepower or armor," reported her chief engineer, a former asteroid miner named Big Jim. "But we know how to move rocks through dangerous space. Those alien ships are just really complicated rocks." Laughed despite the desperate situation. "Jim, you're absolutely right. We don't need to destroy them directly. We just need to guide them into something that will do the job for us." The Prometheus and 3 other converted mining vessels began working in coordination, using industrial mining equipment to create artificial asteroid fields that channeled alien ships toward the massive gravity well of Jupiter. They weren't fighting a space battle. They were conducting the largest mining operation in history, except the ore they were extracting was enemy warships. The Serpentine destroyers found themselves being maneuvered through increasingly narrow corridors of space debris, their formation compressed, and their maneuverability restricted. When they finally realized they were being herded, it was too late to escape the gravitational trap that the humans had constructed. "This is impossible," Commander Al hissed as his flagship was caught in Jupiter's gravity well. "They're using our own momentum against us. No military force has ever attempted to weaponize planetary gravity." But the humans weren't thinking like a military force. They were thinking like survivors who had spent 50 years learning to navigate the most dangerous environments in the solar system. To them, Jupiter wasn't a gas giant, it was a tool. The asteroid belt wasn't an obstacle, it was ammunition. The entire solar system was their workshop, and they were using every available resource to defend their home. This adaptability was demonstrated throughout the engagement as human forces began sharing successful tactics across the entire fleet. When Captain Foster's cruise ship proved that ramming attacks could be effective, other civilian vessels began implementing similar strategies. When Lieutenant Martinez demonstrated that single fighters could disable cruisers through precision attacks, human pilots across the system began adopting her maneuvers. The aliens found themselves fighting an enemy that learned from every engagement and immediately distributed that knowledge to all other forces. Their own military doctrine required formal analysis, committee review, and hierarchical approval before implementing new tactics. By the time they had analyzed a human innovation, the humans had already developed 3 new approaches. Dr. Sarah monitored this tactical evolution from Earth's command center, watching as humanity's scattered defenders began fighting with increasing coordination despite having no centralized command structure. Admiral, our forces are demonstrating tactical adaptation rates that exceed anything in military history, she reported. Individual ship captains are developing new strategies and sharing them across the fleet in real time. Admiral nodded grimly. That's because we're not fighting according to military doctrine, Doctor. We're fighting according to human nature. When humans are threatened, we don't just fight individually, we become something larger. Every ship captain out there knows that their survival depends on everyone else's success. This collective intelligence was demonstrated when Captain Maria Santos of the Defiant Spirit developed a tactic that revolutionized the entire engagement. Instead of trying to defeat alien ships through direct attack, she began using them as weapons against each other. Navigation, plot an intercept course with that cruiser, she ordered, but make it look like an escape vector. Captain, that course will take us directly through the crystalline formation, her pilot warned. Exactly, we're going to thread the needle and let them shoot each other. The Defiant Spirit accelerated toward what appeared to be certain destruction, flying directly between 2 alien formations that were converging on Earth. At the critical moment, Santos ordered emergency maneuvers that sent her ship diving below the engagement plane, just as both alien formations opened fire on what they thought was her position. Instead of hitting the fleeing human ship, the alien formations found themselves firing on each other. The energy weapons struck the crystalline vessels, while the crystalline precision beams hit the formation. In seconds, 2 alien battle groups were engaging in fratricide while the human ship escaped unharmed. This is brilliant, Admiral said as he watched the tactical display. Santos just turned their coordination against them, sent her strategy to all ships immediately. Within an hour, human forces throughout the solar system were implementing variations of Santos's deception. They would appear to retreat through alien formations, forcing enemy ships to fire on each other. They would pretend to be disabled, drawing alien vessels into positions where they blocked each other's lines of fire. They even used the wreckage of destroyed human ships as decoys to misdirect alien targeting systems. The Galactic Council forces found themselves fighting an enemy that used their own strengths as weaknesses. Their superior coordination became a liability when humans tricked them into coordinated attacks on their own forces. Their advanced targeting systems became useless when humans filled space with debris that confused their sensors. Their overwhelming numerical advantage became a disadvantage when humans maneuvered them into positions where they interfered with each other. High Arbiter Thanes, you watched the tactical situation deteriorate with growing alarm. General, our forces are suffering casualties at unprecedented rates. How is this possible? Arbiter, the humans are not fighting according to any recognizable military doctrine, the general buzzed in confusion. They appear to be improvising new tactics continuously. Our combat analysis systems cannot predict their behavior because they have no consistent patterns. Show me the latest engagement reports. The holographic display showed a battle that every principle of civilized warfare. Human ships were using debris as weapons, gravity as artillery, and their own wreckage as camouflage. Civilian vessels were outmaneuvering military cruisers through maneuvers that violated basic safety protocols. Individual human fighters were taking on capital ships and winning through tactics that were mathematically impossible. This cannot be warfare as we understand it, Thanes mused. These humans fight as if they believe the laws of physics are merely suggestions. What the aliens didn't understand was that humans had spent learning to survive in environments that actively tried to kill them. Earth was a planet of natural disasters, climate change, predators, and resource scarcity. Humanity had evolved not just intelligence, but adaptability, creativity, and the ability to find solutions when conventional approaches failed. The human pilots diving through asteroid fields at impossible speeds had learned their skills racing through Earth's orbital traffic. The crews using industrial equipment as weapons had spent years jury-rigging solutions to problems that had no manual answers. The captains coordinating complex maneuvers without central command had grown up in societies where individual initiative was valued over hierarchical obedience. But perhaps the most devastating human advantage was their attitude toward acceptable losses. While alien civilizations fought to minimize casualties and preserve resources, humans were willing to sacrifice everything if it meant achieving their objectives. This difference became critical as the battle approached its climax. Admiral finally realized that conventional military victory was impossible against an enemy that redefined the rules of engagement in real time. "All battle groups implement Protocol 7, he commanded. "We will withdraw to safe distance and conduct orbital bombardment of Earth. If we cannot defeat their military forces, we will eliminate their planetary base." Protocol 7 was the Galactic Council's ultimate military option: planetary destruction. It was rarely used because most species surrendered rather than face the complete annihilation of their home world. The aliens assumed that threatening Earth itself would force immediate human capitulation. They were wrong. Admiral received the alien ultimatum with grim satisfaction. "Doctor, they're finally playing the card we've been waiting for." "Sir, they're threatening to destroy Earth. How is this an advantage?" "Because now they've revealed their true intentions," replied. "They're not conducting a military operation to force political compliance. They're committed to genocide. And once humans understand that surrender means extinction, they stop holding back." The threat to destroy Earth had the opposite effect from what the aliens intended. Instead of forcing surrender, it triggered the final phase of humanity's defense: total war without any limitations or restrictions. Across the solar system, human forces received final transmission. "All ships, all stations, all personnel. They've just threatened to murder our planet and everyone we love. Rules of engagement are now, there are no rules. Fight with everything you have, sacrifice everything you must, and show them what humans do to genocidal monsters." The alien ultimatum had just transformed a desperate defense into something far more dangerous. A species fight for survival where humans had decided that dying, while killing their enemies, was preferable to dying helplessly. The Galactic Council was about to learn why extinction-level threats against humanity were the most dangerous mistake any species could make. The moment Admiral's ultimatum reached Earth, something fundamental changed in the human response. What had been desperate defense became something far more terrifying: methodical extermination. The alien threat to destroy Earth had removed every constraint, every moral limitation, and every rule of civilized conduct from human warfare. Dr. Sarah watched in horror and fascination as humanity's true nature revealed itself. "Admiral, our forces are implementing tactics that violate every convention of warfare. They're targeting alien life support systems, using chemical weapons, and conducting deliberate ramming attacks." "Doctor, they just threatened to commit genocide against our entire species," replied coldly. "Convention ended the moment they chose extinction over negotiation. Now we show them what humans become when you threaten our children." The change was immediate and absolute. Human forces throughout the solar system abandoned any pretense of fighting according to galactic military protocol. Ships began targeting alien life support systems instead of weapon arrays. Crews started using improvised chemical weapons designed to poison alien atmospheres. Commanders authorized suicide attacks that prioritized killing enemies over preserving human lives. Captain of the Prometheus received new orders that would have been unthinkable hours earlier. "All mining vessels, implement Operation Fossil Fuel. Convert all industrial chemicals into atmospheric contaminants. Target alien life support systems." Crew, all experienced miners who understood dangerous chemicals, began weaponizing their industrial supplies. Mining solvents became airborne toxins. Cleaning compounds became corrosive gases. Even the ship's waste recycling system was modified to produce biological contamination agents. "Captain, this violates every safety protocol and most interstellar laws," warned her chief engineer. "Jim, they just declared their intention to murder every man, woman, and child on Earth," replied. "Safety protocols are for people who plan to survive. We're going to kill as many of them as possible before they kill us. The Prometheus and 7 other mining vessels began conducting attacks that the aliens had never encountered. Environmental warfare. Instead of trying to destroy enemy ships through explosive damage, they were poisoning the alien crews with industrial contamination that made their vessels uninhabitable. Commander of the Crystalline Hegemony found her flagship's atmosphere becoming toxic as invisible human contaminants infiltrated her ship's life support systems. Her crew began experiencing respiratory distress, neurological symptoms, and organ failure from chemicals that her species had never evolved to process. "Medical officer, what is happening to my crew?" she demanded. "Commander, we are being poisoned by atmospheric contaminants of unknown composition. The humans appear to be using industrial chemicals as biological weapons. Our filtration systems cannot process these compounds." Realized she was facing an enemy that had abandoned every principle of civilized warfare. Evacuate all personnel to emergency shelters, seal all atmospheric systems. But the human contamination was designed by miners who understood closed-loop life support systems better than anyone in the galaxy. They knew exactly how to introduce persistent toxins that would accumulate in recycled atmosphere until they reached lethal concentrations. The aliens could seal their ships, but they couldn't escape the poison that was already inside. This new ruthlessness was demonstrated throughout the engagement as human forces implemented tactics that prioritized enemy casualties over their own survival. Captains rammed their ships into alien formations even when escape was possible. Pilots conducted suicide runs, targeting enemy command centers. Entire crews volunteered for missions with zero survival probability if it meant taking critical alien assets with them. Lieutenant Martinez, now flying her 3rd fighter after losing 2 to enemy fire, this new approach to combat. Her current ship was a hastily repaired wreck held together with emergency patches and determination. "Control, this is Martinez. I'm down to emergency power and 1 torpedo. Request permission to conduct close-range attack on the alien dreadnought." "Negative, Martinez. Your ship can't survive in range of that ship's defensive systems." "Control, respectfully, they just threatened to blow up my planet. I don't care if I survive. I care if that dreadnought survives, cleared to engage." Martinez accelerated her failing fighter toward the massive alien flagship, using debris and wreckage to mask her approach. Her single remaining torpedo wasn't powerful enough to significantly damage such a massive vessel, but she wasn't planning to rely on conventional explosives. Instead, she had modified her torpedo with materials from the ship's reactor core. The weapon wouldn't just explode. It would contaminate the alien ship with radioactive materials that would make entire sections uninhabitable for their species. The attack succeeded, but at the cost of Martinez's life, as radiation exposure from her own weapon killed her even as she watched the alien dreadnought's crew evacuating entire decks to escape the contamination. Similar attacks were conducted throughout the solar system as human forces embraced tactics that guaranteed mutual destruction rather than accept the possibility of alien victory. They poisoned enemy atmospheres, contaminated alien ships with radioactive materials, and used biological agents specifically designed to target alien physiology. The psychological effect on the Galactic Council forces was devastating. They were facing an enemy that seemed to prefer mutual death over defeat, and whose tactics became more extreme rather than less as their situation became more desperate. High Arbiter Thainsyu monitored these developments with growing alarm. "General, our casualties now exceed 50% across all battle groups. The humans are using weapons and tactics that violate every convention of civilized warfare. Arbiter, they appear to have abandoned all constraints following our ultimatum. Our forces are reporting chemical attacks, biological contamination, and suicide assaults that prioritize enemy casualties over military objectives." Thainsyu studied the tactical displays, showing the nightmare that the engagement had become. The humans weren't just fighting to win. They were fighting to ensure that victory against them would be so costly that no other species would ever attempt it. "General, what would be the projected casualties if we continued this engagement to completion?" Buzzed calculations. "Arbiter, if current trends continue, we estimate total fleet losses of 80 to 90%. The humans appear willing to accept 100% casualties to inflict maximum damage on our forces. The truth was even more disturbing than the general's estimates. Humanity wasn't just willing to accept total casualties. They were using their inevitable deaths as weapons. Every human ship that was destroyed took alien vessels with it through ramming attacks, reactor overloads, or contamination releases. Every human crew that died ensured that alien crews died with them. The aliens found themselves facing an enemy that treated death as a tactical advantage rather than a defeat condition. When human ships were crippled beyond repair, their crews didn't surrender. They turned their vessels into guided bombs. When human fighters ran out of ammunition, pilots used their craft as kinetic weapons. When human installations were overrun, defenders activated self-destruct systems designed to maximize enemy casualties. Admiral watched the battle reports with grim satisfaction. "Doctor, our losses are approaching 90%, but alien casualties are nearing 70%. The mathematics are working in our favor." "Sir, how can 90% losses be favorable mathematics?" "Because we only need to survive long enough to make victory against us too expensive to be worthwhile," explained. "Every alien ship we destroy makes other species think twice about threatening humanity. Every tactical innovation we develop gets transmitted to our colony worlds. And every casualty we inflict demonstrates that humans are too dangerous to exterminate safely." The Admiral's strategy was vindicated when Admiral received reports that changed his understanding of the engagement completely. "Sir, our long-range sensors are detecting multiple human colony ships altering course toward this system," reported his intelligence officer. "They appear to be abandoning their colonization missions to join the defense of Earth." Felt cold fear as he realized the implications. "How many ships are we detecting?" "Over 200 vessels, sir. Generation ships, colony transports, and deep space exploration craft. All are converging on this system, and all appear to be implementing the same extreme tactics we've encountered here." The aliens had assumed they were fighting the entire human military capability. Instead, they had been fighting only the forces immediately available in the Sol system. The rest of humanity, scattered across dozens of colony worlds and exploration missions, was coming home to join the fight. But worse than the numbers was the intelligence data about human tactical adaptation. The extreme strategies developed during the Sol system battle were being transmitted to every human settlement in the galaxy. Species that had never encountered humans were about to face an enemy that fought with complete disregard for conventional military limitations. High Arbiter Thanesu received the final intelligence report that ended the engagement. "Arbiter, we have intercepted human communications indicating that their colony worlds are implementing Protocol Scorched Earth. They are preparing to conduct total warfare against any species that threatens human settlements." Protocol Scorched Earth was humanity's ultimate military doctrine: complete destruction of both enemy forces and human assets to deny any advantage to hostile aliens. Instead of accepting conquest, human colonies would poison their own worlds, contaminate their resources, and turn their settlements into environmental weapons that would destroy any occupying force. "General, what would be the implications if humans implement this protocol across all their settlements?" "Arbiter, it would make human territory functionally worthless to any conquering force. Even successful military campaigns would yield only poisoned worlds and contaminated resources. The economic cost of occupying human space would exceed any possible benefit." The final blow to alien morale came when they intercepted a human transmission that revealed the true scope of their defensive preparations. Admiral's voice echoed across alien communication networks. "To all Galactic Council forces, you threatened to destroy our home world. Now you get to learn what that threat costs. Every human colony is armed with weapons designed to poison star systems. Every human settlement has been prepared for total environmental warfare. Every human ship carries biological agents specifically designed to contaminate alien territory. Attack one human world, and we'll make sure your entire species regrets it for the next 1,000 years. We've shown you what humans do when we're defending our homes. Do you really want to learn what we do when we're seeking revenge?" The transmission was accompanied by technical specifications for weapons that violated every convention of civilized warfare. Planet killers, biological agents, and environmental contaminants designed to make entire star systems uninhabitable. Admiral realized that continued engagement would result in either total fleet destruction or the beginning of a galactic conflict that could poison hundreds of worlds and kill billions of beings across multiple species. "All forces implement general withdrawal," he commanded. "We are disengaging from the human system immediately." High Arbiter Thanesu's final report to the Galactic Council was brief and terrifying. "The humans have demonstrated that they prefer species extinction over defeat. They fight with complete disregard for casualties, convention, or consequence. Military engagement with humanity is not recommended under any circumstances. They have redefined warfare from political contest to species survival struggle. Any future conflict with humans should be avoided at all costs." The Battle of Sol ended not with human victory, but with alien withdrawal from an enemy too dangerous to destroy safely. The Galactic Council had learned that some species were more dangerous when threatened than when left alone. And across the galaxy, other civilizations began to ask a new question when considering human contact. Do we really want to fight a species that's willing to poison the galaxy rather than accept defeat? The answer for most rational civilizations was a definitive no. Humanity had earned something more valuable than military victory. They had earned a reputation as the species that other species chose not to fight. Not because humans were unbeatable, but because beating them would cost more than anyone was willing to pay. As the alien fleets from the Sol system, Admiral issued one final transmission that would echo across the galaxy for centuries. "This is Admiral of the Human Defense Force. To any species considering military action against humanity, we've just demonstrated what we do when you threaten one star system. Every human world is prepared to fight the same way. Every human colony has weapons designed to make victory against us too expensive to be worthwhile. We don't want to fight you, but if you force us to, we'll make sure you regret it for generations. Choose wisely." The message was clear. Humanity had changed the definition of warfare from contest to catastrophe. Any species choosing to fight them would discover that humans didn't just fight to win, they fought to ensure that winning against them was too costly to be worth the effort. The galaxy had learned a new lesson about the species from the small blue planet. Humans didn't just think outside the box when it came to warfare. They set the box on fire and used it as a weapon.